Hello, I'm Bobby King, Mayor of Henderson. I'm joining with city leaders across the state to urge state lawmakers to pass legislation that would return more sales tax dollars to all the cities and towns, easing the pressure of the local property tax and providing meaningful relief for most Tennesseans. If adopted by Governor Bill Lee and the Tennessee General Assembly, this legislation returns millions in local generated sales tax revenue, which will have a meaningful financial impact on the cities in our state by assisting with ever-increasing costs of providing essential services to our citizens and maintaining vital infrastructure that affords residents a high quality of life.
To help explain what city officials from across the state of Tennessee are proposing, we first need a bit of background information on how we got here. Since 1947, the state and Tennessee towns and cities have operated under a revenue sharing relationship, under which the state returns a portion of the sales tax revenues back to Gallatin and other cities where they were generated. Those dollars help offset the cost of municipal services and eases the burden on our local residents.
But that all changed in 2002 when the state faced a serious budget crisis. To avoid fiscal calamity, the state enacted two measures that altered the historic revenue sharing relationship with local municipalities by keeping all of the new revenues collected for the state's general fund.
The combined effect of these two measures has allowed nearly $2 billion in sales tax revenue generated in local communities to accrue entirely to the benefit of the state's general fund. That's $2 billion that would have benefited us, our local cities, and our local citizens had that historic relationship not been altered in 2002.
This legislation fully restores the historic revenue sharing relationship between the state and municipalities. It returns these locally generated revenues to Tennessee's towns and cities,
and brings relief to municipal taxpayers by easing the burden on local property taxes that impact every citizen in our cities and towns.
In the 20 years since these stopgap measures took effect, Tennessee state leaders have managed the budget with a strong, fiscally conservative approach that has created a sustained period of economic vitality.
Our economy is strong and the envy of neighboring states. Tennessee ranks as one of the top economies in the country, and our cities and towns are attracting not only visitors, but permanent residents who want to make the great state of Tennessee their home.
Thanks to the stewardship of conservative leadership, our state continues to enjoy a period of sustained fiscal prosperity, and the threat of a state financial crisis is a distant memory. Yet the two stopgap measures established in 2002 are still in place. To be clear, our current administration did not create these issues, but they are the only ones that can fix it.
With 9 consecutive years of surplus and recurring revenues, the state has never been in a better fiscal position to restore the historical relationship and return to the revenue sharing practices that existed prior to 2002.
Cities are the true economic engines of the state. On average, about 90% of the sales tax revenues generated in the state occur within the city limits. This 90% is not produced freely. Economic growth is intentional, and when it happens, it is financed largely through city taxes paid by you and by business owners.
Taxes paid to cities fund the investment for police, fire, streets, water and sewers, schools and libraries, parks and other services that make our communities desirable places for people to live, work, and visit.
And with unprecedented growth related to the influx of people who are relocating here and have chosen to make our great state their home, cities and towns are worried how they will continue to keep up with the investments needed to keep the economic engine running without further burdening our taxpayer.
Just like inflation and higher prices affect our own personal pocketbook, cities and towns face the same adverse effect, just like the state does. Governor Lee has alerted Tennesseans to problems with the state's transportation system, that revenues are not keeping pace with current transportation needs. Just like the state, cities and towns are facing similar challenges, and it's just not limited to the maintenance of our city streets. As mayor, I've seen increasing costs that affect the delivery of all municipal services. In the current economic conditions, the return of local generated dollars means budget flexibility, more resources for essential services, and less pressure to raise property taxes.
The delivery of city services and the quality of life for Tennessee residents are directly linked to adequate funding. For every dollar of locally generated sales tax revenue returned to Clinton, there's a dollar less in local taxes that you must pay for municipal services and to promote an environment conducive to generating more sales tax revenue for the state. Every dollar retained by your city helps that local government meet funding demands and reduce the pressure to increase local tax rates.
If the state returned to sharing all the sales tax revenue, it would provide relief to local taxpayers.
It would also allow local governments to meet funding demands that are necessary to maintain vital infrastructure, to continue providing essential services to our citizens, fuel economic expansion, and afford the quality of life that has allowed this state to prosper.
We are working to return more of the sales tax revenue to the communities and the residents responsible for generating the revenues, and invite you to join us.
Now is the time to restore the historical sharing relationship between the state and municipalities
by once again allowing local governments to share in 100% of the state's sales tax revenue that flows into the state's general fund.
Now is the time to return millions in locally generated sales tax revenues to local governments to assist with the ever-increasing cost of providing essential services that affords residents a high quality of life and promotes an environment that has enabled existing businesses and industry to succeed and grow.
Now is the time to provide relief to our communities by returning more of the sales tax revenues already being collected locally.
The restoration of these shared revenues would relieve the pressure on local property taxes that impact every citizen in our cities and towns.
At a time of high inflation, the restoration of the historic revenue sharing relationship means more budget flexibility and badly needed resources for essential services. The time is now.
Restore, return, relief.
Restore, return, relief.
Restore, return, relief. It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do, Tennessee.
Contact your state senator and representative today. Ask them to commit to co-sponsoring and passing this essential legislation.